Senator, earlier you talked about energy,
Right.
and you folks are looking at renewable energy.
Right.
So Senate Bill 631 addresses sustainability as well, right? So can you explain a little about Senate Bill 631?
Okay, maybe I can maybe let's start with that and I'll step in on that.
Okay. What you're referring to is a bill that was introduced to help the farmers take some of the lands that that farmers own and use a part of it for solar energy. And there's two things that they have told us. Recently, we went to the Big Island and made a tour. We started out in Waimea. There's two things for a farmer that he has, that a farmer has a consistent water source and low-cost energy, affordable energy, if you will. And solar is one way of maybe helping a farmer to stay profitable on the lesser lands, not the A lands or important ag lands, but with lands that are classified at a lower rate, and that allows the farmer to have solar and provides that low-cost energy.
You know, it's not just farming the land and finding water sources. The whole operation, quite frankly, needs to have an electrical source that they can depend on to process their things, as well as around their homes where they're living on the land. So the idea was to provide an opportunity so farmers could put in these solar systems to provide the energy, at the same time not turning these farms into large electrical alternative energy enterprises, because that would mean that we would take away land that was supposed to be for agriculture, and I think the Department of Agriculture was concerned about it as well.
That's correct, yeah. There was a concern of the director, Russell Kokubun, whose place I took, and here in the Senate.
So there are guidelines in that
Right.
bill
And
that addresses
the guidelines, for instance, I think initially the bill said to allow them to do it on A and B lands. In the committee, it was changed to B. I think it was B, C, D, and E lands, lesser lands, and only to carve out like 10% of that could be used for land could be used for that.
right, and
purpose.
Renewable energy would make us less dependent
Right, there'll be
on
like
it.
biodiesel
Right.
and
Yeah.
biomass and those things.
So let's talk about farmers and the agriculture industry now. And so what issues do you know of after visiting the farms and going out to talk to the farmers? What kind of issues have they just talked to you about?
Well, they have a number of issues, but one that comes up consistently, I think Gil will attest to that, has been the availability of reliable water sources.
A consistent water source.
Yeah.
I know that the farmers out in Kau in my district, the southern part of the island, it went out of sugar. The sugar mill closed years ago, but all of the tunnels or where the sources of the water came from have been in disrepair. So monies that were appropriated, 1.5 million a year ago, I believe. And this year we're asking for 2.5 million of CIP type money to be released or appropriated so that we can have these water resources repaired, like the tunnels above Kau to be repaired for the farmers below. And earlier part of, last year, having gone through a drought cycle for the whole Big Island, just about, impacted the farmers. And on our recent tour, like out in Waimea, they've got reservoirs above the town of Waimea that needs to be repaired and fixed, because without water, the farmer can't operate.
So is that what Senate Bill 145 addresses, is
Right.
the irrigation?
And it's not just fixing the water system on the Big Island.
Yeah,
It was
throughout
to
the state.
cover a whole lot of water systems throughout the islands. And Waihole, if you go up to the central part of Oahu, Waihole ditch system, it's certainly huge for farming in the central area, as well as those that are growing like Alun farms and those in going west to Kapolei. Waimalalo, that's another system. Molokai irrigation system, upcountry Maui, Lower Hamakua, his area, Ka'u, his area, Kekaha, I guess is your area as well, Kahuku, and it's about $10 million, but they won't fix it all. You know, some of these are just, like Gil said, when the sugar companies ran the operation, they took care of it, but now they're not, right? So it falls on us to do it, and this is important. And clearly, that's one of the issues. Also, there is the Farm to School program, which is trying to encourage people to come into our agriculture. I think that's another one, to educate young people and make them consider farming as an enterprise.
You know, I think another issue is a couple issues is the disease and pests that is impacting the crops. Like on the Big Island, macadamia and coffee, it's dependent on bees. And the varroa mite and the beetle that is that's over there, it's a huge concern. So for the farmers, so we're trying to do something to do that. We've introduced a bill that I believe it's a bill that was has crossed over to from the House to the Senate to provide an apiarist, a professional, a scientist, a person who knows about the bees, that does research to find out what's the problem, because I mean it impacts not only the farmers but just your people that grow crops around you know, fruits or vegetables, fruits around their property. That without bees, just imagine without bees and the pollination that they provide, it'd be huge. Huge
We wouldn't
impact.
have any crops, right?
Yeah, we
Because we
wouldn't
need
have
the
any, right,
pollination
Sure.
That's right.
process.
Without pollination, you're
Yeah.
not going to have a fruit.
Right. And so let's talk about the land now. And farmers say that they don't have enough space to grow their crops. Are there any bills going through right now that addresses the need for land?
Well, you know, I think we've asked the counties to identify what we consider to be important agricultural lands. And I think unless you know what are the important areas are, you can't do a good job of zoning these areas. And I think that's what the bill would do, to identify that.
So you're talking about Senate Bill 1443.
Right. That will help to identify it, and I think once you identify it, then you can make you know, realistic policy. So I think those are the kind of things that are really important. There are efforts by, as an example, the Army has purchased some land above what they call the Gilbert estate, going through central Oahu, and they're willing to have an operation of allowing farming to go on. But again, it comes down to how much a length of a lease they're going to give. That's another issue, right?
Yeah.
We talked about land leases.
You know, go back to your question about Senate Bill 1443. It's a follow-up on a bill that became an Act 233 back in 2008 to identify the lands, the important ag lands. And Senate Bill 1443 puts a timeline on it, the importance of identifying these important ag lands. And, you know, the state owns a lot of lands, and within the state, you know, like, for example, the Department of Land and Natural Resources. If these lands are identified, it can be transferred over to the Department of Agriculture.
So what's the importance of putting a timeline on the bill?
Well, I think what we want to do is we want to, I hate to say we're going to force the counties to do it, but the sooner that they make identification of these things, the sooner that the better policies can come forward as far as identifying land we need to protect. You know, because as Gil said, you know, what's happened to agriculture has been an urbanization of these areas, right?
That's correct.
And you know, once you pave over it, you're not going to be able to use the land at all. And
There'll be an increased pressure to urbanize the lands.
Right.
And, you know, once you take it out of ag, I mean,
it's gone.
it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're really looking for people your generation and younger that are really going to have to bear the results of what Gil and I are trying to do. You know,
Such as school to farm.
school to
Yeah,
farm.
sure, school to
We
farm.
want to provide a history, well, a future for our people that will see the land not urbanized, having food grown that protects our food supply, educating young people to go into farming.